Okay, so we are actually going to start with a little trick that I just showed you, which is factoring. And we're going to factor this and then see what we can say about the graph. So y equals x squared plus 9x plus 8. And if we factor this, we're going to get y equals x plus 8 times x plus 1. Because 8 times 1 is 8, and 8 plus 1 is 9. Now, if you remember, if I set this equal to 0, I can get the intercepts. So I could say that the two numbers that go in the parenthesis to give me 0 are going to be negative 8 and negative 1. Because negative 8 plus 8 is 0, and negative 1 plus 1 is 0. I think I need to do a better job showing you that. So I'm going to write this out as an equation. I'm going to say that x plus 8 equals 0, so x equals negative 8. That's my first intercept. And x plus 1 equals 0, so x equals negative 1. That's my second intercept. So if we look at those two intercepts here, negative 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Negative 8, that's where our parabola is going to turn. And it's going to turn halfway between 1 and 8. So if we look at those two numbers, that distance there is 7, and half of that is 3.5. So we're going to count in 1, 2, 3.5. So this is what we call the middle, the axis of symmetry. And I'm actually going to use a yellow line here to show it. So I'm just going to draw a yellow line. Draw a yellow line down the middle here. It's not really showing up, so let's make it a little bit thicker. That's not really showing up either. So we'll go one more. Well, for some reason, it is not showing up. How about now? There we go. So there's the middle, okay? So we care about where it's turning. So there's a couple tricks. One of the tricks is finding out what that number is. So that number is actually negative 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So x equals negative 4.5. And if we just substitute in negative 4.5 into our equation, we can get the place that it turns. So my vertex is going to be at y equals negative 4.5 squared plus 9 times negative 4.5 plus 8. So let's put it in our calculator. Negative 4.5 squared plus 9 times negative 4.5 plus 8. And we get, okay, so what happened here? So let's try that again. So y is equal to negative 4.5 squared plus 9 times negative 4.5 plus 8. For some reason, it's not giving me an answer. Well, that's confusing. Don't know why that's happening. But what would happen is if you plug that number in here, we're going to get an equation that turns somewhere on that line. So I'm just going to put in x squared plus 9x plus 8 into my calculator and see what happens. Thanks for hanging out with me here, and we'll figure it out. So it's going to be x squared plus 9x plus 8. And we're now going to graph this. And if we look at this graph, get rid of this, is like I told you, it turns here at negative 1, and then over here, it turns at negative 8, and then this vertex is down here in the middle. So if we look at that, there's negative 4.5, And since I have the cool technology, I can see that the y value is negative 12 and a quarter, or negative 12.25. So that is my vertex. So my vertex for this is going to be negative 4.5 and negative 12.25. Right? And so this parabola comes down, turns, and it goes back up like that. And this vertex here is somewhere down around negative 12.25, which I don't think fits on this graph, so I'm just guesstimating it. I think this only goes to 10, so we did not leave you enough room. It really will go down further down here. Should be down here. All right, the second parabola, which I want to show you here, actually has a minus in front. And if you remember what we did in class, this parabola is going to turn over like this, right? So if I put that into my graph, negative x squared is 4x minus 5. So we're going to go back to here and clear it. So negative x squared plus 4x, and I think it's plus 5. Let me go back. Minus 5. So we're going to go back and make this a minus, and then we're going to graph. So as I told you, it actually turns over. So the first thing you're going to notice about this is it doesn't make it up to this line, right? So we don't actually have an x-intercept. None of these points are going to cross the x-axis. So this parabola is always going to stay negative. So technically it has no real solutions. The solutions are the places that it crosses this line. So this parabola does have a turning point on the y-axis, is negative 5, and it does have a vertex. It looks like the vertex is 2, negative 1, but other than that, we don't have any x-intercepts. So if I wanted to write it out, the vertex looks like it's at 2, negative 1, and it does look like it turns at negative 5, but since the vertex is like that, 2, negative 1, right? More about parabolas as we move forward. I'll leave these last two for you to work on your own. This is just more factoring practice.